Yeah, I mean, look, and I think the defense is going to be better than people think. I think they'll surprise some people with what they're going to do schematically, having watched them at training camp a few times. And again, the receivers are young, but they're explosive. And what people haven't talked enough about because of all the trade rumors, Ertz looked awesome in practice. Awesome. So you've got a young quarterback, a great O-line. You should have a good running back, two good tight ends. And I think Watkins and Rager give you speed. I think Devontae Smith's going to get open. I mean, he's got it. He knows how to stick that foot in the ground and get open. So, look, they're not going to win the Super Bowl, Mark. I'm not getting carried away.
Right.
I just think they're going to be better than everybody else seems to think.
Do you have a number in your mind that you're thinking about right now for the Eagles?
Yeah, I think 8 or 9. I think 7's the low end. I think 10's the high end. So I'll go 8 or 9 is kind of where I think they'll probably end up.
Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm right around there as well. What do you make of that young quarterback? What do you make of Jalen Hurts?
Well, I wish we would have gotten a chance to see him more, obviously. And certainly that New England game was a real bummer when he had the stomach infection or whatever. But what we did see against the Steelers, I thought looked pretty darn good. And I know there were a lot of reports coming out of camp that weren't favorable, but he looked good in the joint practices I was at. He looked good in the one preseason game he played. Everybody tells me he kept improving and getting better throughout camp. I think there will be some ups and downs. I don't think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be the worst. I don't think he's going to be one of the 5 worst. I think they're going to incorporate his running ability, which will really help Miles Sanders. I think he is going – look, if they win 8 or 9 games, like I think they will, then Hurts played solid football. The real interesting part about that, Mark, is going to be whether or not that is enough for the Eagles to say, yes, he's our guy in 2022, or we can still be better. In other words, if they win double-digit games, he'll be the guy in 2022. If they hit the under and they win less than 7, right, you got to think that they'll probably be looking with all those draft picks they have to improve that position. Right. It's the 8 or 9 where they might kind of be like, all right, we saw enough there that we'd be happy with him and continue to grow there. But if we can get somebody like Russell Wilson or whatever, maybe we should consider that.
When you were in the booth, and when did you get the news that Jalen Hurts wasn't going to be playing in the game, and how did that go down?
When Joe Flacco ran on the field. And dude, speaking of like made it, right?
Right.
That game, Mark, was live on NFL Network. Our feed, Eagles Television Network, was live on NFL Network. Can't tell you how many text messages and tweets I got. It was the second highest rated preseason game in like 3 years because it was the only game on. And people are curious about the Patriots and Cam and Mac Jones and curious about the Eagles. So it was a big opportunity for me, a lot of eyeballs. And Flacco comes running out. And they told me the day before Hurts is going to play. And I'm like, what is going on? I was confused. And then Dave Spadaro said he had a stomach issue. And he obviously did. They wouldn't have had him go through all the warm-ups, everything he did to then send him to the hospital or whatever. But major bummer for me. And then the whole game, the Eagles really got blasted. I mean, the play of the game that we had to pick for a sponsor was like a Raekwon Williams fumble 12 yards down the field, forced fumble in the fourth quarter. That was the play of the game. I mean, it was slim picking. So unfortunate for me from a broadcasting standpoint, ultimately pretty irrelevant for the Eagles in terms of what matters for this season.
Gardner Minshew being here, do you think he'll eventually be the backup? Do you think that Jalen Hurts is on a short leash with Gardner Minshew being here? How do you see that quarterback room kind of shaping up?
I don't think short leash at all. Okay, I think they're committed this year to seeing what Jalen Hurts has and knowing that there will be ups and downs. People don't want to hear it because they're not happy with him right now. But Howie Roseman's a forward thinker. I mean, Howie's always looking a move or two ahead. I really think there's 2 reasons here, Mark. Number one, they want to make sure they have an inexpensive but legit backup quarterback in 2022. Minshew's under contract for 2 more years. That way they don't have to have a guy like Flacco for $3.5 million guaranteed next year. So that's number one. All right. Number two, Ryan Tannehill, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, Kirk Cousins, they've all gone on the COVID list already. Mm-hmm. So what happens if Flacco or Hurts go on the COVID list, or both? I think they want to – I don't even know if they'll have Minshew in the same room as those guys. I don't know what they'll do, but they want to make sure I think they're covered. They don't want to be playing a wide receiver like the Broncos did last year.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you this last thing here, just regarding Nick Sirianni. Would you have played Jalen Hurts in the third and final preseason game?
Probably not, no.
Okay.
Those joint practices, that's a lot of work, man. I mean, that's 4 days going against an opponent, and they get a lot of snaps and a lot of reps in those 4 days. I probably would not have subjected him to the injury risk. I mean, you could have put him out there for a series or two, but J.K. Dobbins tore his ACL on the 9th play for the Ravens, which kills the Ravens this year. So I probably would have done the same thing. It is interesting, and Nick and I talked about it multiple times. There were a bunch of teams that treated the third preseason game like they used to treat the third preseason game, which is the dress rehearsal for the starters.
Right.
Then there's also a bunch of teams that treated it like the fourth preseason game, and they played nobody. And I don't know who's right and who's wrong, but you're only really wrong if somebody gets hurt. So I think I'm a conservative person. I would probably err on the side of caution as well. Now, selfishly, since I'm the preseason TV guy, they should play all the starters the whole game every time. No,
especially when they're on NFL Network.
yeah, but I'm the guy that because I lived it. I love seeing the young guys. I said this the one game, but 2 years ago, Mark, in the last preseason game, it was Boston Scott and Alex Singleton and T.J. Edwards and Greg Ward. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of that season, when they won 4 in a row to win the division, those were the guys scoring the touchdowns. I mean, it was Boston Scott and Greg Ward. So I like getting a chance to see those guys because with the Eagles' injury history recently, some of them are going to play. I mean, some are going to start a bunch of games this year. Right. That's been the track record. Mm-hmm.